So good morning, and welcome into the Friday Fundamental. And today we're going to be working over the course of the next, give or take, 45 to 50 minutes, focusing on a bathroom design. You can see the design on screen at this stage, and this is really kind of the finished product that we're heading towards. Um, in the course of the next just under an hour or so, we're going to take a look at converting an existing what was kind of an odd shape uh, condo style apartment, almost bathroom, if you will, and taking out some of the existing that was there and then using different design techniques, importing of custom symbols, some of the existing symbols that are already in Softland to create the bathroom that you see. The main purpose of this is to really show you the capabilities within the program for laying out the bathroom design, from custom wall design, which is what this glass wall is here for the shower, to importing a custom, freestanding tub, to even the use of cabinets in maybe a different way than what you've used them for, where in this case they're actually hung on the wall. And because this bathroom was so narrow, it would allow, if you will, the flooring to be seen running all the way to the wall and give an illusion of it being wider than it is. With that said, my name is James Henderson. I'm your instructor, if you will, for the next little bit. And I'm going to take this drawing off screen at this point, and what you will see now is actually the actual diagram as the bathroom stood. And so the difference obviously being the shower that we have down here on the left hand side, which was just kind of a bathroom shower or predefined unit that sat in place, and then as you take a look, there's obviously a closet that's sat in front. There was a toilet room in back right here, and then we've got just kind of a run of cabinets. The brick wall actually is in place, and so rather than taking that out, the whole thing was just going to be, let's use some of the structural that's there and try and just update it. These days everybody's going right now with the whites and the grays and even the blues, and so we're going to use that as kind of our palette on this to build from as well. Looking at the Softland screen, we have got up here, our main floor plan drawing. And as I take this into the main floor plan drawing, and I'm just going to change into the drawing mode, you'll see that this is the basic layout of the bathroom right here, where we've got the tub, we've got the run of vanities, we've got kind of this built-in shower unit, and then of course the toilet room, and then there was actually a closet that's here. And so to get ourselves started, one of the things we're going to do is basically rip out a lot of this information so that we can, start with a template to build it from. And so in this case here, I'm just going to go in through the item erase and begin to just remove some of the information that's here to take it out, including some of the moldings and even the cabinets and lighting fixtures that are there. And I'm just really, at this stage, pulling this back so that as we take a look at this inside the 3D shaded, we've got more of a wide open, feel on this plan. And so carrying on with that, let me just zoom in, and I'm going to take out a few of the other items that are here. And this basically opens it up to what we have at this stage. And so I'm going to break this into kind of two screens for a little bit so that you can actually see in the 3D as we're drawing and in the floor plan as we're designing. And so to do that, what I will do is come in and right-click on the 3D shaded tab, and right now I'm going to click on New Vertical tab. And when I click this, what it will do is it's going to break my screen into two. And so over here on the right side, we can see what this bathroom is going to look like via 3D. And then over here on the left-hand side, we can see what this is going to look like in 2D. And so going forward from here, the first thing that I'm going to maybe do is begin the design of the shower over here, because that's really the most complex part of the plan. As I drag on what the design again initially looks like, we're going to have a glass block wall that will come in underneath the soffit that's there. we're going to use different interiors to create the different tile patterns that are going to be on the shower walls. And we're actually going to import a custom symbol from an external website, which will allow us to see the rainfall shower head that we're going to use. And so with that said, then what I'm going to do is, if I come in through the draw option and I were to select wall and scroll this down, you'll see that I've defined a shower wall already. And so if I were to, I'm going to draw this and I'll take you in and show you how it's actually been defined at this point. So clicking on the shower wall, and basically at this stage using the soffit as a guide that's already in place, which you can see here, I'm going to sketch in, our basic shower wall that's going to be placed there. Now this is taking the place of the existing smaller shower that was there, and we're incorporating the closet that was in place to create a much larger shower, something that is more of a walk-in, multi-person, can have a bench in it, etc., for use. This shower wall that I've defined, if I were to edit it and come in and look at the definition of this, it's simply made up of just glass. We've gone in and we've added a width and a height to this, to the definition. As I scroll this left to right, you'll see that I've even added different coloring options so that it shows up on the plan a little more visible as far as that's concerned. Now the shower wall is running all the way up at this stage. I could certainly edit that shower wall and change the height to whatever I need it to be. In this case, running to the underside of the soffit will work, and so I'm going to leave that there. Things like the tile, we'll take care of all of that in a little bit. So I'll be taking this out and putting a different tile pattern in altogether. So just look past that for right now as we design, basically what this is going to look like. Softland, when you're drawing walls, and the shower wall is no different, basically what makes drawing within the program so easy is the fact that walls will snap to one another as long as they find, another wall within 6 inches. And we call that our cleanup tolerance, and basically what adheres to the cleanup is the wall joint. So as I edit this shower wall right here and take a look at it, and I were to click on the endpoint, you'll see that the wall joint is at 6 inches. And so what it's doing is we have these 3 walls attempting to miter together. In my case, I'm going to override that default and set that to 0. And if I do that, it would allow me to now edit or adjust this wall to butt up to that wall right there. So not a big thing, but when you go to print the plan out, certainly that's something that you may want to know how to do so that it shows butting to the wall. Now, with that done, I'm going to now go inside the shower and begin to design some of the patterns that are there on the drawing screen. Okay, and so in order to do that, we're going to change modes into what is called interior mode. Now, interior mode is basically gives you the ability to go in and define interiors. And so in this case here, I'm actually erasing. You can see at one point here, I just did an item erase, and it took out all of the flooring. And if you were to edit any of this, you can see here's another bit of vinyl flooring that was in there. It's just a basic polygon that fits within the room, and that is something that as you sketch it in on a room-by-room basis, either using interior mode or room mode, we will add these interiors for you, and then you can modify the different surfaces. But also, as you use interior mode, you'll be able to go in and cost out the different square footages for this material. So in this case here, I'm taking the vinyl flooring out. I can also see inside the 3D, I've got a little bit of baseboard that carried over. So I'm going to remove that as well, so that we're really just down to the plywood on the subfloor that's there. Now, as I begin to sketch in here, I'm going to be able to sketch the different, or various options, if you will, on this mode. And in interior mode, as I edit this, I'll be putting on what are basically wall surfaces. And these wall surfaces, as I use them, okay, is going to allow me to edit their heights, edit their materials that are using that I'm basically being able to use on this. And so as I come into the to the floor plan, I'll begin to sketch this out. And so basically what I'm going to do is I will come in through the floor plan. I'm going to change modes. It's in interior, and I'm going to select the draw. And when I click on this and I select wall covering, you'll see that I've got a host of wall coverings that are there. Now, the first 10 have been reserved for different paint patterns, and we'll get into that, where you can actually assign different, paint manufacturers and so on to the drawing. But you'll also be able to go in and assign tile patterns and other such items on that actual drawing itself. So in my case here, if I pick wall covering 23, which really I could rename these long term if I wanted to reserve 10 stone tiles and 10 glass tiles and so on, because as you'll see, there's 100 different wall coverings that are reserved, and then you can actually add to that list. But if I pick wall covering 23 and I pick manual trace, I'm simply going to come in and I'm going to click basically at the corner of this wall and just run my cursor back to the corner and then run it all the way down to the corner and click. And when I do that, as I edit this wall covering number 23, I can see that it's using full coverage, or in other words, the entire height of the wall is going to be used. And as I zoom this up and I come in, I'll see now that at this stage I've got this wall covering tile running all the way up. And as you edit or right click on this within 3D and you come in and you do a surface edit for wall covering 23, you'll see at this point now that I'm actually using a specific texture that's been assigned to that. Okay, these are all of my textures. So you're going to see today I'll probably use a lot of Softland Plus textures and symbols and so on. And so this texture here that I've selected has already been assigned to the Coronado, and I'm into the stone veneers, and as I scroll down into the French limestone, and this would be the texture. And as I edit this option here, I can actually go in and modify the overall dimensions on this. And so depending on what you're doing, you could, if you wanted a very small tile, you could, certainly set that all the way down. Or in my case, I was going for something much larger, or almost like, block-like as far as the tile is concerned. And so in this case here, I've simply typed in the horizontal and vertical dimensions on that. Now, because I only want this to run a specific height on the actual drawing itself, I'm actually going to come in and modify this to have a specific, only run instead of the full height, but to a certain dimension. And so for doing that, you're actually not going to do that inside 3D. The 3D is where you would modify wall coverings as far as the textures assigned. So in this case here, if I come over and edit wall covering number 23, and I were to come in and remove the full coverage at this stage, I could then type in a new height, let's say of 54 inches, and as I regenerate this, I am now going to see that it only runs part way up. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, and again, I'm working with a working version of Softland today, not a just as shipped version of Softland, so to speak. And when I say that, it's because some of my textures are going to be set up already ahead of time. And I do that just for time saving today in our class. But you'll also notice that my shaded mode has textures turned on. I tend to work in this mode, shaded, because it's much faster than textured, right? Which takes a lot of time to do reflections and so on. And while I'm in shaded mode, under the options, if I were to come into mode options and then select face options, I've actually turned the texture on. I just find this gives me enough of a glimpse of what things are going to look like for mixing and matching materials. Yours, when you go into shaded, probably looks something like this. And the difference being, while you can see volume and whether or not things, tie together, adding that little extra as far as the texture is concerned, for me, tells a better story. And so that's going to allow me to see how these items are going to work together. Okay, and so going or continuing with this, then the next thing that I want to do as our design goes is, on top of this, I maybe want to run a like a rail, if you will, of tile that's going to be used on there. And so in this case here, coming back into the floor plan but staying inside interior mode, I'm going to come in through the draw, and I'm actually going to use a chair rail for what I'm doing here with the rectangular tile that I want to place in there. And so this might push the boundaries a little bit of how you're used to using the chair rail. You may think of that as in dining rooms and bedrooms and so on. But in my case here, using this as an option with a square, and I can certainly define a number number of these on here whereby as I edit them, I could call it square stone tile rail and so on. And I could even use the different, patterns that are there as far as the profiles are concerned. But I'll click OK on this. And once again, I'm just going to sketch where I want to start this and where I want it to finish. And it's simply a click to start, click, click, and then right click on that. Now, as I do that, and I come into the 3D shaded, you'll see that I've got my stone pattern all the way down here. And so at this stage, as I'm looking at this, okay, there it is. And so I could actually edit this, and I could change both the height as well as the offset and dimensions on this, on the actual plan. And so as I come in and edit this square chair rail that we have here, I can go to the comment, and I'm going to change the offset and push it up so that we're actually changing the height or where it is elevationally speaking. And then I could even come in and change the dimension options on this as far as what the individual height and even the thickness is going to be. And so here I'll turn the custom height on, and I may just key in, let's say, maybe 3.5 inches for that. And so that's going to change its height, and I could change the thickness if I wanted it to be something other than what we've got there. So maybe in this case, maybe not quite as thick, and then click the OK button. And as I come in and regenerate that, it's going to drop that into place for me. Once again, as I do a surface edit on this, all I've basically done on this texture is simply picked, the texture that I want to use on that pattern there as far as the tile is concerned, and then, change whatever its horizontal and vertical spacing is going to be. Now, as I pull back, sometimes when you're building these sorts of things, of course, this glass wall is kind of in the way right now. And so I'm going to edit this glass wall as it stands right now. And if I go into the Common tab, here I could remove it from extracting in the model. And just by turning that off, this is going to allow me a little easier visual for working inside the drawing. So anytime you're working, and sometimes, as we know, getting the 3D perspective that you really, really want isn't always necessarily possible because of tight spaces. This would, just by editing it, removing it from extracting in the model, allows me an easier perspective to be able to see this. Okay, and so the next, carrying on with it with the actual tile itself, then I'm just going to add a band that's going to run basically all the way around here. And so when I do that, I'll be able to then specify again its width, its height, and all of that information, even its offset. So inside the main floor plan, I'll come in through wall covering. Wall covering 22 on mine. I use 23 down here, so I'll click OK. And in this case now, I'm just going to once again click to start, click to finish, and I'm going a little bit fast today just to try and get everything in. So there may be some adjustments that I would otherwise do, on the, as I'm building this. But what you can see is it adds this tile in now. So, and because I use 23 down here and 22 up here, keeping in mind I have pre-assigned the textures, on this to speed up, a bit of the drawing process, but I could come in and I can actually edit number 22, which is this tile right here, and then I could come in and begin to change, things like what the height is going to be, what the offset is going to be, and so on. So in this case here, I might change the height to something, much lower, just 15 inches, and change the offset to, let's say, 54 inches, and click OK. And you'll see the benefit of doing this with the two windows open, because at this stage, I can see the 3D and the 2D as I'm building it. And so that's, just one of the benefits of doing it this way. And so once again, we could now edit, or add another chair rail in there, another pattern in there, and so on, just to continue building this. And so, excuse me. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in through my floor plan. Again, I'm just picking my chair rail. I'm picking the same square option, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to manually trace this and place it in. And so once I do this and drop it in there, I'll say yes to the option which says, hey, there's already one in there. Do you want to add another one over top? And then within the 3D, I could actually edit this option here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up. And all I'm doing right now is I'm just modifying dimensions and making sure this whole thing fits. as I go. And so in this case here, 3.5 inches to get the actual thickness and the dimensions. And I think I modified this down to be a little thinner, on the other one. And so there you can see, I've now got that, those chair rails in and so on. And so, the next option that I want to do, remember I made this as 23, this is 22, and I want to add a tile pattern up here now that's going to differentiate. So if we're having an interactive dialogue, I would ask you what makes the most sense, and of course you would say, well, pick a different pattern than 23 or 22 in order to add tile up there. And so to finish this option out for right now, I would come in through wall covering. Let's say we pick 21, and let's say I come in here and I manually trace this out. And once I have done that and I place the 21 on there and I say yes, it adds the tile in there. Now, of course, once it does that and it added it over top of everything, that's where I'm going to need to come in and actually edit this wall covering and change based on this dimension plus these in order to get it to work. And so as I edit this dimension, right, and so I'm not taking the design away from you. You have to keep some of the numbers in play so that you know what what numbers to punch in here. But you could certainly, I think, once you play with it a few times, get the feel for what we're doing. And so that gets all of our tile into play, as far as what we're doing here. Now, as far as the floor is concerned, which I've got down here, okay, I'm just going to place a floor in there. And so I may come in through in the drawing here and simply through flooring, you can pick what you're going to do as far as the tile is concerned. So I'm just going to use the defaults that are here, tile number 2, and I'll just simply manually trace where I want this tile to be placed. And so I'll click on my flooring. I'm going to manually trace my tile, and then I'll just click and sketch where I want this to go. And what you're basically doing at this stage is you're just drawing a polygon. You have to enclose the shape in order to place it in there, and as you edit this, it will tell you what tile number it is, what the square footage is, etc. And again, as I go back and forth between the two, keeping in mind I've turned the glass off on this at this stage, I now have basically a similar texture that's being used on both of these. And as I edit this in 3D and just simply do a surface edit, you'll see that from here I once again got into the Softland Plus, I picked the manufacturer, and then from the stone panels I've gone ahead and assigned that texture there. Okay, so that's we're making some headway here in just 20 short minutes as far as getting a shower design, but it goes beyond just having simple one tile pattern all the way down, so to speak, as far as that goes. Now, the next thing that I want to do is maybe carve out a niche in here, somewhere we can put shelves and so on, as far as the glass texture and tile and so on in there. And so in this case here, I'm going to come in and I'll zoom up on my 3D, and just simply to show you can do this in 3D, I will come in through draw and opening, and when I do this, I'm going to scroll up, and I'm really just looking for the niche symbol. There it is. And so once I find the niche symbol that I'd like to use, I will pick, what the shape is going to be. So I think in this room here, we opted to go with more of a 12, like a square type shape. And once I click that, I'm just going to position my cursor where I want to place it and click. Now, it places it all the way up here as far as that's just its offset where it places it in a 9-foot wall, etc. So in my case, I can either edit the dimensions or I'm just going to move it. And once I've done the move and I see where it is, I can even come in through adjust and begin to adjust and play with shapes. And this is, for all intents and purposes, the whole point of me doing this is to show you that you can keep the design aspect. Do not let the CAD software limit you as far as stretching and playing with shapes and getting what visually to the eye works. You can always come back after the fact and edit this and change what exactly the dimension needs to be. This is a dimension that seems to work, but it's close. So let's maybe make that 2'4", which just makes it a little bit easier as far as working in the tile work and so on. And then the 12-inch width, that'll work, and so on. It picks up the tile design in behind, and then what's really just happened here is I've just done a copy and paste of this material to this so that I get the same tile pattern running all the way around. And so that's all there is to that. For the sake of putting a couple of glass tiles in this, I would actually probably just use something like when I'm doing a display like this, of maybe just something as simple as a cube. And so I'm going to show you this from within the drawing mode. It's not to say I couldn't create a shelf of some sort to do it, but for what we're doing, I'm going to come in through Draw Solid, and I'm just going to select Cube. And so when I see what I'm doing, I'm actually, in a lot of cases, going to draw this outside where I'm actually going to place it to start. And then I'm going to edit this cube, and I'm going to change it to a solid maybe that I haven't used. And so you'll see that it's, it's showing blue at this stage. That cube could then be modified as far as its height's concerned, its width, and so on, right? So we may put this in at, 0.25 inches. And I'm going to offset this up right now about 4'6" or 54 inches just to get it up into the drawing. And so as I take a look at this, there is what's eventually going to be my glass shelf. And so for now, I'm just going to move this up where I think I maybe want it, so you can see what I'm doing. And then when I'm finally happy with it, I'll just move it into the niche. And so when I do this, I can then do a copy of this, and we're just going to copy a second one up there. Now, obviously, this could be dimension, but for right now, this does the job of what we're trying to do. And so now all I would do is simply come in through the Edit, Surface Copy Paste. I'm going to pick the glass texture, and then I'm going to apply it over here. And so just like that, we've got ourselves some glass shelves. We've got ourselves a niche that's in there. Okay. Now, carrying on, one of the things I wanted to put in here is a shower, an overhead, rain shower head. And so one of the places you can go to find a lot of things is if you just simply go to Google Warehouse. So this is just the 3D warehouse symbol. You can actually even go to the manufacturers. And you'll see that earlier for today's lesson, I was looking for a Kohler freestanding tub that I could take you through, and I've downloaded that already. And so in this case here, once I get to 3D warehouse, I could just simply type in that, I want a, let's say, Kohler rain shower head. And let's just see if I can, it begins to fill this in for me and see what I can find. And so you'll see that I get a whole series of different shower head patterns that are usable, for three-dimensional modeling. Now, what you would do at this stage, guys, is you would locate the one that you want to use, okay? And when you're happy with whatever it is that you're going to use at that stage, you can click on that, and then you can you can even click on the 3D model, which would allow you to go in and take a look. And this is just a SketchUp file that has been put out by the manufacturer. They want you using their symbol, so they put a whole level of detail on this, so you can see what it looks like. When you're happy with that, you'll simply click the download button and then pick the version of the model that you want. And so you go all the way up through, the different options. Okay. Once I have done that, and so for the sake of time today, so you're not watching the download, I have already taken the time to download into my, my desktop, into the Kohler library, that symbol there. So let me take you through at that stage then, creating a 2D and 3D symbol that can be added for that rain shower head. You're going to do this from within the plan view of the symbol. Okay, and so for the sake of, I'm going to move this back to the previous tab group just so we've got a larger screen to work with for right now. And you're going to come in through File, and you're going to select System Options followed by System Library. And when I click on this, it's going to open this up for me. And so now I could scroll down and I could create, what the library is, where I want to put this, whether I'm going to put this in manufacturers and I want to store it maybe in the Kohler library, right? And then I could even create or add a library in here. And I'm just going to call this, rain shower head. Okay, and I'll click OK on that. And so once I've created this, I'm now going to come in through the wizard option. And the wizard option will allow me to now create a symbol in there. And so here, I'm just going to call it by the manufacturer's name. So 13695, and I may put, shower head in there or something along that lines. And so I'll click the next button. This symbol is not on my screen at this point. I simply downloaded it onto my desktop, and so I'm going to say no to this and click the next option, which now allows me to determine whether it's in a 3D folder or whether I'm going to import that. And so when I pick the import 3D, I'm going to select the browse option, which will allow me to go to my desktop, and I'm just going to scroll down to find my my Kohler library that I've stored things in. Okay, so I've got my Kohler symbols, and here it is, my symbol library that I want to grab and open up. And so when I pick the open, I can now determine where I want to place this. And so for right now, I can either create a library, or so I'll pick a new folder, and I'll pick Kohler shower heads or something along that lines, right? And so I'll click OK to drop that in and press the OK button. So at this stage now, we are importing that symbol to Softland. Once the symbol has been imported, I can now select the next button, and it's going to allow me to go in and orient this. Okay, so is this the top? Is that the bottom? And in this case, because it's symmetrical, the rest of this becomes, and I point this out because I import a lot of symbols. I'm currently doing a project right now where I've had to import some custom, furniture symbols, etc. And in some cases, the artists who had created them, they come in reversed. And so this would allow me to now orient that symbol. As this is okay, I can click next on this, and I'm happy with it. I'll click next on this option, and then the dimensions are pulled directly from the Kohler library. And so the last thing I need to do now is reference this symbol to where I want it to go. So I can either reference it to the floor, to the ceiling, etc., all depending on what I want to do, and then I can even move that symbol. In this case, I think that's fine, so I'll click next, and I'm just going to generate a two-dimensional preview from the 3D symbol, which goes pretty quick because it's a square. So I'll pick the next button, and I'll pick finish. I can now come in through draw symbol. I'm going to do a quick search for shower. Okay, and we find the shower head, the symbol that I just imported. I'm going to position my cursor where I want this to be, and so I'm using the F11, which is projection snap, which will allow me to automatically center it, in the area of the shower itself as I'm sketching it, and I can move this if necessary, exactly to where I want it to be. And so once I have done that, I'm going to come into the 3D shaded. And I referenced it to the ceiling, but I forgot in this design, we actually had some bulkheads in here as far as that goes. So I may want to move this down. And so I'll just come in here and do an edit on this. And on the offset, I'm going to offset it down. I think it's 12 inches was that bulkhead that we had there. And we'll just regenerate. So and so once we have that shower head where we want it to almost be in this case, I can even move it, partially if necessary, just to, have it set something like so. That's how you get a symbol into Softland. Okay, and so now we've created our shower head that we've got right here. We'll do the same thing with a freestanding tub in a little bit, but certainly at this stage now you can go through and add all of your other symbols that you possibly want to add into this. And so coming in through draw and symbol, if I'm going to stick with the Kohler, I could go in through the different faucets that we've got there for what we're doing. I'll go down to showers. Let's see what we've got here as far as my different options, and so I find different shower heads. I'm going to do a search for thermostats, which will take me down to the different options that I have for all of the different handles. And so I find an option like this, and we maybe place that on that wall. And so turning the snap feature off just so that it snaps. There we go. We place that in, and then we may be looking even for a faucet, shower faucets. Okay. And so as I just begin to scroll this down, you can see I'm using the search in the symbols option to look for what it is that I'm looking for. And here I can, it's you know, it's going to give me everything that I've got as far as, you know, bathrooms and showers and sinks and so on, until I find exactly what I'm looking for, you know, in this option. And or in this case, I could also just go to if I can't find it real quick, I may just go into the manufacturer that I'm comfortable with, that I happen to know, and you know, and find, you know, my different symbol options that are in here, you know, to be able to use. And so this is just a case of, you know, once you find the symbol that you want, then you position your cursor and drop it in. It's centered it. I'm just going to move this off to the left hand side. And so as I take a look at this inside 3D, this is what we have at this stage, and that's just building a shower. Now, there's obviously other things we could put in there, but let's turn that shower glass wall back on so that it's actually visible. You'll recall that earlier I went in and removed it from extracting in the model, and then finally through openings I could come in, and I'm just going to, you know, from my interior doors, I'm going to come down and just find my shower walls, and once I found those, I could actually, you know, just draw those in. So let me draw followed by opening, and we're going to come in through the interior doors and find my shower door, and then at that stage I can then pick the size that I want to put in there. And so once I have done that, I click, I take a look at it inside the 3D shaded, and there it is. Now things like curbs and so on, I could define that as part of a wall. I could use a solid on that. I'll come back to that in a little bit to finish it out if necessary. I'm going to close the model right here so we can take a look at, you know, placing a few other symbols, you know, inside the actual plan itself. So as I said, I also wanted to bring in some cabinets and some a freestanding tub that was going to be used over there, and that's what we're going to, you know, focus on in the final 20 minutes that we're working, you know, on this design. And so I'm going to begin by adding some of the cabinets in there after I had taken out the other ones that would be there. And so in this case here, just using Softland's, and I'll do it within the plan view, I'm going to come in and using the draw option followed by cabinets, and I can just select the base. And in this case, I'm actually using almost kitchen cabinets or base cabinets because of the height. I'm trying to get something rather than the vanities, which sit much lower, you know, on the design. And so from here, I'll pick the 39-inch cabinets. I can select what the face preview is going to look like from the flat panel that we have here. Okay, so we could go with a shaker option. As far as that design is concerned, I can also come in, and from the face layouts, I can actually pick a different layout altogether as far as having simply just two doors versus having a drawer panel in there. I'm going to position my cursor where I want this to draw and click to start and insert it in there. And then I'm going to, you know, at this stage, I could actually move that into place or you know, adjust, you know, that and so on. And so what you'll see is I get one of these options in there at this time. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to edit this. And so I'll edit this first cabinet right here, and I could change things about it like the finish. And so by changing it to a painted option, and by default, your paint option may have come in when you edit this, and yours actually shows a simple white color. And so when you take a look at this, you know, that's what it's showing here. And then in this case, I'll just do a you know, have the same, you know, pattern, you know, here. And so that's what your paint pattern comes in. And all I did, going with more of the grays and, you know, options in here, is just doing a surface edit. So just edit, surface edit. I could then pick this, and I can actually, from the display colors, I can pick from the list of paint patterns that are in there, or in my case, I may just pick, you know, a gray color that I want, and I'm going to darken this up, and so it pastes that in there, and then just doing a surface copy paste, I assign that same option. As I edit this, you know, so we've got basically, this is the option right here as far as all of that is concerned. I can actually go to the countertop option, and as I go into the countertop option here, I can change the material from, let's say, granite to marble. okay, which gives me a white finish, and that texture again can be assigned or modified on the fly as far as that is concerned. Okay, I'll be able to go into the individual base cabinet, and from here I'm going to be able to go in and modify or add to it a specific sync symbol on this. And so I'll click the sync option to add to this, and from here again I'm going to go back to the manufacturer, and today I'm going to use the Kohler library that's in there. And so as I select from this list the lavatories, okay, I can now go through the manufacturer and pick the symbol that I want to use. And so you'll see that these symbols, again, these all ship with Softland Plus, and they certainly give you a wide range of symbols. And you just go through and pick the one that you want to use inside the actual library itself. And so in this case here, I'm going to pick this one and just add that to the actual drawing itself. Okay, and so the same thing, I can actually add a if you will, tap to this. And so as I come in here, and once again, I'm just going to go back down to my library, my listing of manufacturers, and I'm going to scroll down to my Softland Plus library that I've got in here. And so now I'm just going to select on the Brizzo, and from the list of symbols that we have here, I can go through. Those are the Roman tub ones, and in this case here, I've just got a single two-handle faucet to drop that in place. Okay, so that's adding a sink and adding a faucets to that with just a simple edit. Carrying on with this, as I scroll this up a little bit and going to my my accessories, here I could add legs to this option. And so from here you could go in and you can modify and pick your different types of leg symbols that you want on there. Okay, if that's what you're looking to do. In my case, what I did is after I added the legs, I began playing around with inside the cabinet, turning the cabinet legs opacity off. And as I took a look at it, I saw that at this stage, by with the cabinets themselves, if I could see the floor running all the way to the wall, it seemed to give a kind of a feel of more openness, if you will, or widened it. And so in this case here, just playing with it and doing an edit on this, going into the base cabinet and actually changing the actual height. And in this case, just changing the height to, let's say, 27 inches, but not changing the, which is the actual dimension itself, but then not changing the offset, keeping that at 34.5 inches for the top of cabinet. You will see at this stage, then, that's going to give me more, more room underneath, okay? And I would see that floor running all the way to there. Now, that's just, one option of being able to do that. Because I did this in the opposite order of what I would have normally done, I'm just going to clean this up so that the sink itself, gets back to, where the top of the cabinet's going to be. And so here, just playing around with the design, I'm just going to move this into place and set it there. And so me moving the offsets and dimensions around just kind of sets, a few things off. And so that gets that set where it is. And I could change hardware and so on, but at this stage, I'm just going to go into the main floor plan. I'm going to save this, and we're going to come in, and I'm just going to do a copy block of this very same cabinet and just set it next to it. And again, we could, over time, get all of this dimensioned into place, but, given what we're doing or the time frame that we're on, I'm just kind of moving this into place a little bit, something like so. And so I now have a couple of these, vanities in there. And so the last thing I want to do right now is I want to add in the freestanding tub that's in there. So again, this is a case of inside the floor plan. This will be a bit of a recap for you, but I found a freestanding tub on the external website. And so I'm going to come in through File, and I'm just going to click on, System Library. And in this case here, I could go down and I could find, the manufacturer and so on, et cetera, and detail all of this out. And I'm just going to, save it into this freestanding library underneath bathroom. So I'll select the wizard option. And from here, I'm just going to call it a Kohler, freestanding tub or something along that lines. And click the next option. and it's not on my screen, so I'll select the no and press yes, and then I'm going to import the 3D symbol. So I will again browse to my desktop to find where my Kohler symbols are, okay? And so as I click on this and pull this up, I've got the freestanding tub that I showed you earlier, and I'm going to import it. And in this case here, I'll just create a new for today's lesson, and we'll drop it in there. And so it's going to pull this up, and we can see what the tub looks like. And that's exactly the one that we had on the website. So I'll pick the next option, and we get into the orientation. The top and the bottom look correct, and so I'll continue with this and all the way through. By the way, the dimensions, again, they're pulled from the website or from the designer on theirs. And so we'll click the next button and generate this. And so this is going to give me the ability now to, draw this into the symbol or into the drawing. And so I'll pick the draw, followed by the symbol. I'm going to go up to my bath, and I think it was here or here that I placed this. And I've got two of them in there. This is the one that was originally placed in with the bathroom design, but so I could show it to you, I've imported a different one, and we will simply draw that into place and add it here. And so as I look at this inside the shaded mode, I'm just going to place that where we want it to be. And that's our freestanding tub. And so we've got two of them in, one that I had imported already, and now this one. And so moving forward with the design in the final, few minutes, we want to go in and we want to, play around with some of the options that you have in there as far as the textures are concerned. So let's get a floor in here. And in this case here, what I wanted to do is just basically come in and have some sort of a almost scallop type flooring in there. I had to actually go and find that bitmap, if you will. And so again, I just went to a manufacturer's website. I found the JPEG of their sample, downloaded it into Softland, and I'll show you that. So within the interior mode, at this stage, I can come in through the flooring, and we're just going to pick tile number 1. Remember, we use tile number 2 inside the shower. I'm going to pick the manual trace. And I'm going to include all of the bathroom, including the little toilet room that's in there. And so I'm just going to scroll, around and trace up to, but not including the shower itself. And that's going to place the toilet or the tile 1 in both the bathroom, the toilet room, and kind of this bigger area here at the front. And as I edit this, I'll see, I've got my square footage and so on. And as I take a look at this inside the 3D shaded, it's actually, and I do a surface edit on this, you'll see the tile pattern that I downloaded. There it is there, okay? So again, all I did was a search on a web page, for different manufacturers, and when I found something that I liked, I added that there. That's not to say that Softland doesn't have a whole series of tiles in there. I just needed a specific pattern for what I was trying to do, and so this one suited it. It's just a simple JPEG, and then I can then actually assign that to the plan. Now you will save those files, if you will, and I'm just going to try and pull it up here so you can see it where I would save these files. And so as I take a look at this, inside my PC, inside my install of Softland, and I got my 3D, I can go into textures and into bitmaps. And once I've gotten to this point here, I can pick any of these folders or even design that I want it in something else. And so as I go into flooring, these are all of the textures, and there's the one that I downloaded and just saved. And all it is a simple JPEG, as you can see. And once that JPEG has been saved into my 3D textures bitmap folder, I can then assign it to to an option here. The same thing with this wall texture. We just simply wanted to paint this, and so all I did was once again just simply found a painted texture, and I had a few of them to pick from. Okay, and so ultimately, once I found something I wanted to use, I just simply changing the texture. This is a simple download, and we give the illusion of the painted brick wall versus the red brick wall that was already in there. All right, so that's getting our textures. Now, to take this through to the next logical conclusion, if I do a surface edit on this, you'll see that paint number 1 has been used here, and then I've got basic drywall down below. So I only painted the top half of this. All of this would have been done using the same offsets I did inside the shower. But the beauty of this is I can come in here now, and I can actually select from the texture options that are there from our color swatches that ship with Softland. And you can certainly add to these lists of textures. So if I come down into the Sherwin-Williams, color palette, as we've talked about already, grays and blues and so on are really all of the rage at this stage, and so I can pick from any of their different options that are there. Okay, as we get into the options, and here I can also scroll up and look for something that's more in a light blue pattern and so on. So those are all options that are available to you, and you can pick from the Sherwin-Williams all the way through the Benjamin Moore textures, and they're all available. And so as I pick a texture, it's going to assign it to that option up there. And again, okay, so I'm just scrolling through it, and I've found a lighter blue from the Benjamin Moore textures, and I'll do that. The bottom half of this wall, I'm just going to assign the same white pattern to this. And so in this case here, just simply copy and pasting the white on the bottom half, I now get the blue on the top half because I've modified my wall texture to be offset up X distance. Okay, and then the bottom half I will leave it as white. And so now what we've got is kind of that lighter blue up top, and then we've got the white almost wainscoting, on the bottom half with the trim patterns that are there. All right, so that's how we can get that. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is probably just finish out with some of the details, right? So we managed to get this in place. As I'm looking at it from the floor plan and looking at it inside drawing mode, we've got our bathtub, we've got all of this. So little things like mirrors and lighting to finish this out. And, both of these add a lot of depth. Light is going to give you shadows, and the mirrors are going to give you the reflections, which is a fantastic thing to have as far as getting depth and so on in there. And so by default, this thing only had a couple of different lights in there, and so ultimately these were just taken out, and we're basically just going in and setting up some can lighting in there. So from within the electrical mode, you'll be able to come in through draw electrical symbols, and I'm just going to do a quick search for can lights and pick up a couple of 4-inch can lights. And so once I've done this, it could be argued that you might want a chandelier over top of this this tub right here, and I would be fine with that. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm just going to place a couple of can lights here, and then I'm going to doing a copy block for lighting purposes. I'm going to copy this down into this kind of almost seating like open area right here, and I'll just copy a couple more, something like so. And so that gives me some lighting, which could be dimensioned into place, but at this stage, we're just going to eye some of this in so that we get enough time to get everything finished. So I've added a bunch of can lighting in there, and as I begin to look at this inside texture mode, okay, what you're going to see is that lighting will begin to cast shadows and onto the textures and so on. But as soon as I change to texture mode in the upper right hand corner, you can see that it comes with a cost as far as the time frame it takes to actually get the image up on screen. And so this is going through right now and calculating all of those light sources as they're bouncing around. It's beginning to calculate things like the any reflections on the glass, both at the shower level as well as the window. And so I'll let this go through once, but then I'm probably going to turn off certain things for the finish until I'm finished, like reflections and so on. So we'll let this generate real quickly, and you can see it's showing very, very bright. I added a lot of light sources, so what we may want to do when this is completed, once we see the finished product, is take a look at this from a perspective of lowering or dimming the lights a little bit. Perhaps the default brightness on them is just a little too much. It's creating kind of all of these white spots and so on. And so almost just about there as far as this goes. And Okay, so this is what it's going to look like once the lighting has been accurately, calculated and so on. So we can see at this stage, and one of the things that we want to do now is maybe come in and add like a large light fixture in the middle. Now, before I do that, one of the things I'm going to do is come in through Option, and I will select the Mode option. And I'm going to turn the anti-aliasing down, which means how crisp the image is going to be. So I'm expecting this to be a little more, not quite as crisp, if you will, just by lowering the anti-aliasing, but that's kind of a temporary thing. And I'm also going to turn the reflections off because I don't need that for right now. And so I'll click OK on that, and we're going to come back into the model here, and we're going to select the draw followed by electrical symbols. And here I'm going to go in. I use generic can lights to start with, but perhaps I'll come in through the manufacturer at this stage in Softland Plus, and I'm just going to go down into the Wayfair symbols and select from a pendant. This is a newer library that's been added, and there's been certainly plenty of options that have continued to be added to this. And I'm going to select this pendant light, which by default I will go in as black, but I've actually set the options on this to color it white after the fact, so that as I'm taking a look at this now inside the texture mode, you see how much faster that came back. We see the light source here. And as I edit this light source, I'll be able to go in here and modify its brightness. I can increase it or decrease it depending on what I'm attempting to do. Okay, so to bring this to a finish, there's a couple of other things that we're going to do on this, which would to wrap this up. And so I'm going to add some mirrors and so on into this. And so I'm just going to select from within the drawing mode, draw followed by symbol. I'm going to do a quick search for mirror. Okay, and I'm just looking for any one of the mirror symbols that are in here. And so certainly not an excess, not that one. And so we'll scroll down, taking a look. This gives me kind of the shape I'm looking for. Okay, and so I'll position my cursor to click and draw it in, and I'll do the same thing to have a secondary one added over here. I may also take the time to go in and add, lighting and so on, to this. And so for today, I'm going to go in and we'll take a look at some possible wall lighting that we're going to use on this. And I may also like a vanity bar or something along that lines. And so let's just take a look at what we've got here for wall lights. And I'll scroll this list down, seeing what we have. And this, of course, will also add to the shadows and lighting on there. And so let's see what we've got real quick. Let's see what this looks like. That one will work. And so we'll add a couple of these in, on the various, sides of that. Things I'm not going to have time to add in maybe include things like the GFI outlets, etc. Okay, so as we take a look at this, we've got the lighting. I'm going to move the mirrors, just elevationally speaking. I'm doing that a little bit by eye, so probably on this, I'll want to edit this and actually change it to exact heights and so on this. So if we make this 3 foot 8 inches from the floor, then we will repeat edit that change there. And so this gives us what our bathroom looks like at this stage. To date, I'm going to maybe do a surface edit on this paint pattern, and I'm just going to lower its ambient down to make it a little bit darker, a little bit grayer, if you will, on that. And so at this stage now, this is where I would come in through my mode and or my options. In my mode options, I may increase the anti-aliasing, which is going to slow down, but is a bit of the process, but it's going to crisp up the image itself. I'm going to come in through the lighting. I can see here that I've got my ambient light. I can lower that and so it's not quite, the lighting is going to come from the electrical symbols themselves. As I go to the face options, this is where I can turn on my reflections for the mirrors and so on. Okay, and I can even edit individual items like the glass, and I can increase or decrease the reflectivity. I could do the same thing for the flooring. Here we've got a reflectivity, and I'm actually going to turn it off just for the sake of our class today on that reflection, and then I can set the regenerate in motion. One more thing I will probably do, and this is just something I do before I hit go on this, is I will oftentimes come in. This is kind of an old school method of doing the camera option, but I tend to set this so that it's realistic to, maybe someone standing that's, 6 foot, 6'4", whatever it is, and what their field of view is going to be, so that we're not looking up at the model, but actually standing at a head height and looking towards the model, and then just beginning to let this regenerate and show us the model. And so this is now running through. We can see the paint patterns. We can see, all that's going on with the the symbols, and in a moment you'll begin to see reflections like in the glass right here. It's minute, it's subtle, but it's there. And when we get to the mirrors, we can see them reflecting in the glass over here, and of course the sky and the ocean that's in the background. That's just a default. I've just dropped a sky option in the back there as far as that is concerned. And so we'll just let this run through to finish it out. And again, the slowdown in the process is the number of lights and reflections as they're bouncing around in order to calculate the shadows on the model itself. And so that's the reason. And in a lot of cases, if you're looking to be purchasing a system, put your investment in your video cards. That's really going to speed up this process. And that's it. That is our finished model, and we managed to accomplish that in an hour exact. Now, of course, I knew the design going in, so that's why I was able to grab things. But we actually imported 2 custom symbols on the fly in there. We managed to add all of the lighting. We customized a lot of the textures. Building this shower took, some of the time that we had in order to do that. But I think that's an important lesson, whether you're building a shower or even doing accent walls and so on in a bedroom. That shows you how to do all of that. I did actually record the class today, so I know it went fairly quickly. And so look for early next week, Monday or Tuesday, I will get this class posted to our Softland YouTube page, our Facebook page, as well as onto our user forum, so that you can maybe go in and review anything that we covered. I hope you enjoyed today, and thank you for joining us for Friday Fundamentals.